December 17, 1944, brought another frozen morning to the Belgian countryside near Aywaille, where Sergeant William Creel stood at his checkpoint, watching his breath crystallize in the bitter air. The jeep approaching his position carried 3 soldiers whose American uniforms appeared regulation, whose weapons seemed authentic, whose English sounded almost convincing. Yet Creel had received warnings about something that challenged every assumption about warfare. German soldiers might be operating behind American lines, disguised as American troops, speaking carefully rehearsed English. When Creel requested the password, the men hesitated. Their second attempt revealed faltering English and nervous glances. Then Creel noticed details that confirmed his suspicions: Sten guns, British weapons no American patrol would carry. Within minutes, Unteroffizier Manfred Pernas, Obergefreiter GU Enther Billing, and Gefreiter Wilhelm Schmidt found themselves in custody. Beneath their olive-drab uniforms lay German field grey, marking them as participants in one of the war's most audacious deception operations. Their capture would trigger unprecedented paranoia throughout American forces, transforming every checkpoint into an impromptu examination of American cultural knowledge. The mathematics of detection would be written not in military codes, but in baseball statistics, state capitals, and Hollywood trivia. This systematic campaign of cultural interrogation would turn ordinary conversations into tests of national identity, making every soldier a potential suspect. The genesis of this extraordinary operation had begun on October 22, 1944, at Hitler's headquarters in Rastenburg, East Prussia. Adolf Hitler summoned SS Obersturmbannführer Otto Skorzeny to his presence, presenting him with a mission that would reshape the final months of the European war through deception on an unprecedented scale. Skorzeny already commanded fearsome reputation among Germany's elite commandos. In September 1943, he had led the glider assault that rescued Benito Mussolini from his mountain prison at Gran Sasso, spiriting Il Duce away in a light aircraft that barely cleared the rocky plateau. In October 1944, he had orchestrated the kidnapping of Miklas Horthy Ginger, forcing Hungary's regent to resign and keeping that nation aligned with Germany. Now Hitler presented his most audacious assignment yet. German forces would launch a massive counter-offensive through the Ardennes forest, driving toward the crucial port of Antwerp. The attack would split American and British armies, recreating the stunning victory of May 1940 when German panzers had reached the English Channel within days. Success depended entirely on speed. The Germans needed to capture at least one bridge over the Meuse River intact before Allied engineers could destroy it. Skorzeny would form Panzer Brigade 150, whose purpose would be seizing those bridges before demolition. Hitler informed him of a decision that made even the hardened commando pause. This could be accomplished more effectively if Skorzeny's men wore American and British uniforms. Small units disguised in enemy clothing could cause tremendous confusion, disrupting communications, misdirecting troops, spreading panic throughout Allied rear areas. Skorzeny understood immediately the implications under international law. The Hague Convention of 1907 was explicit. Soldiers captured while wearing enemy uniforms forfeited their rights as prisoners of war and could be executed as spies. This possibility generated extensive discussion with General Alfred Jodl and Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt. Hitler assured Skorzeny the tactic remained legitimate, provided his men removed Allied uniforms before engaging in actual combat. Within days, Skorzeny submitted his requirements to Jodl 300 men with knowledge of English and American dialects. On October 25th, the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht issued orders to every headquarters on the Western Front requesting English-speaking volunteers for secret commando operations. The order, signed by Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel himself, requested soldiers with fluency in English language and knowledge of American idioms. Skorzeny recognized this broadcast request would reach Allied intelligence within days. He sought permission to cancel the entire operation, but Hitler denied the request. The Allies indeed intercepted the order on November 30th, but intelligence officers dismissed it as deception, unable to believe the Germans would be so brazen about genuine infiltration plans. Volunteers arrived from all branches of the German military, most having no conception of their actual assignment. Fritz Christen, a 21-year-old Luftwaffe private trained as an English translator, expected to interrogate American prisoners far from combat zones. Instead, he found himself isolated behind barbed wire at the training camp, established at Graf-am-Hussar in eastern Bavaria, where security was extreme and one man was shot when his letter home contained excessive detail. The volunteers discovered their mission only after arrival. The reality of Skorzeny's resources would have been comical if the stakes weren't so high. Of the 500 men eventually assembled, only 10 spoke perfect English with knowledge of American idioms. Another 30 to 40 spoke English well, but lacked understanding of American slang. Between 120 and 150 spoke English moderately well. The remainder possessed only school-level English, barely able to manage more than yes or no. Skorzeny later wrote that after several weeks of training, the results were terrifying. Those with minimal English were instructed to exclaim, "Sorry," if approached by Americans, then open their trousers and hurry away, feigning diarrhea to avoid conversation. The equipment situation proved equally desperate. OB West was asked to procure 15 Sherman tanks, 20 armored cars, 20 self-propelled guns, 100 jeeps, 40 motorcycles, 120 trucks, and sufficient British and American uniforms. The delivery fell catastrophically short of requirements. Only 2 Sherman tanks arrived, both in poor condition, with one breaking down almost immediately. Instead of requested American armor, Skorzeny received 5 Panther tanks, 6 armored cars, 6 armored personnel carriers, and 5 Sturmgeschütz assault guns, all German. The Panthers were disguised with sheet metal cladding, olive drab paint, and white star insignia. Skorzeny himself admitted they would fool only very young American troops, seeing them from great distance at night. The uniform situation was worse. Many were British, Polish, or Russian uniforms. Some were summer issue despite the December offensive date. Others bore bloodstains or prisoner markings. Units across Germany, confused by the request, sent whatever they could find. The brigade was flooded with Polish and Russian equipment from units that had no understanding of the operation's purpose. Skorzeny managed to acquire enough authentic American uniforms and weapons for only the commando teams. The best English speakers were formed into I Hate Stielau, named after SS Hauptsturmherr Stielau, who would lead them. These teams received intensive training despite the compressed timeline, studying American Army organization, learning badges of rank, military customs, and drill procedures. Some were sent to Pardubo camps at Kustrin and Limburg to practice English with captured American soldiers. They watched American movies to perfect accents and learn current slang. They memorized American brand names, sports teams, popular songs, and Hollywood stars. The Commandos practiced walking like Americans, smoking like Americans, even chewing gum like Americans. The missions were divided into 3 categories. Demolition squads of 5 to 6 men would destroy bridges, ammunition dumps, and fuel stores. Reconnaissance patrols of 3 to 4 men would scout both sides of the Meuse River, passing false orders to American units they encountered, reversing road signs, removing minefield warnings, and cordoning off roads with warnings of non-existent mines. Lead commando units would work with attacking German forces, cutting telephone wires, destroying radio stations, and issuing false orders. The commandos understood the risks. If captured in American uniform, execution was virtually certain. But another danger existed. In battle's chaos, they might be shot by their own side if German troops mistook them for actual Americans. For identification, They would use specific signals. Vehicles would display small yellow triangles. Tanks would maintain specific gun positions. Soldiers would wear colored scarves beneath their uniforms. On December 14th, Panzer Brigade 150 assembled near Bad Mungensterfel. On December 16th afternoon, they moved out, advancing behind 3 attacking panzer divisions. The plan called for Skorzeny's disguised forces to move around the spearhead divisions once they reached the high ground, then race ahead to capture the Meuse bridges. The operation depended entirely on rapid advance by the 1st SS Panzer Division commanded by Joachim Paper. December 16, 1944. Began before dawn as more than 200,000 German troops launched Hitler's last great offensive in the west through the dark Ardennes forests. The initial assault achieved complete surprise. American forces, thinly spread across an 80-mile front, faced overwhelming numbers. 4 inexperienced or battle-weary American divisions confronted 30 German divisions supported by nearly 1,000 tanks. The German artillery barrage shattered the frozen morning. Searchlights bounced off low clouds to illuminate the battlefield. Infantry advanced through snow-covered forests while panzers rumbled forward on narrow roads. For the first hours, everything proceeded according to plan. The Einheitsstilo teams infiltrated during the confusion, dressed in American uniforms, driving captured jeeps, slipping through the chaos of American withdrawal. One team drove directly into an American-held town, scouted all defenses, then redirected an American convoy of armor and supplies to the wrong road while departing. 2 other teams successfully misdirected Allied convoys, adding to general confusion. They cut telephone wires, removed road signs, and spread false rumors of German breakthroughs deeper than actual penetrations. But on December 17th, reality destroyed the operation's prospects. The 1st SS Panzer Division failed to reach its objectives on schedule. Fierce American resistance at Elsenborn Ridge denied the Germans the northern roads they needed. At St. Vith, American defenders fought ferociously, delaying the German timetable by nearly a week. The rapid breakthrough that Operation Greif required never materialized. Skorzeny realized that same day that his mission's original aims were doomed. He attended a staff conference at 6th Panzer Army headquarters and suggested his brigade be used as a conventional unit. The request was approved, and Panzer Brigade 150 was ordered to assemble south of Malmedy and report to the 1st SS Panzer Division. But the commando teams were already behind American lines. Some successfully completed their missions. Others were captured when they failed password challenges, when nervous American soldiers noticed British weapons or German boots, when their English failed under pressure, when they could not answer simple questions about American culture. The capture near Aywaille on December 17th of Pernas, Billing, and Schmidt created the panic that would define the operation's real impact. During interrogation, Schmidt made a statement that electrified Allied intelligence. He claimed their mission was part of a larger operation to infiltrate Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force, and capture or kill General Eisenhower himself. Whether Schmidt believed this rumor or was spreading deliberate disinformation remains unclear. No evidence has ever confirmed such a plan existed. The actual mission was capturing bridges over the Meuse River. But the statement had immediate consequences. Within hours, security around Eisenhower was dramatically increased. The Supreme Commander found himself virtually imprisoned in his headquarters at Versailles, surrounded by guards who checked everyone entering the building. The paranoia spread far beyond protecting Eisenhower. Allied forces already reeling from the German offensive now saw potential infiltrators everywhere. Checkpoints appeared throughout Allied rear areas, greatly slowing the movement of troops and supplies. American military policemen began interrogating every soldier passing through using questions designed to identify Germans posing as Americans. What is the capital of Illinois? Who won the World Series in 1940? Who is Mickey Mouse's girlfriend? What is the name of football formation? Who is Frank Sinatra? What is the name of the president's dog? The questions from geography to ball statistics to Hollywood to baseball statistics to Hollywood gossip to Americans. What American slang? MPs improvised constantly, creating new questions based on whatever American trivia they could think of. The system was chaotic and often absurd. Many genuine American soldiers could not answer the questions. Regional differences meant soldiers from one part of America had no knowledge of details from other regions. Educational differences meant some Americans never learned state capitals or followed baseball. The checkpoints created numerous problems. General Omar Bradley was detained when he correctly identified Springfield as the capital of Illinois, but the MP believed it was Chicago and held him until his identity could be verified. Brigadier General Bruce Clark was held at gunpoint after incorrectly stating the Chicago Cubs played in the American League. A captain spent a week in detention after being caught wearing German boots he had taken as souvenirs. British soldiers faced particular difficulties. When reconnaissance officer David Niven encountered a guard demanding to know who won the 1940 World Series, he could only reply he hadn't the faintest idea. British troops who could not answer questions about American sports or geography were detained until their identities could be verified through other means. The paranoia affected military operations significantly. Troop movements that should have taken hours required days as every vehicle was stopped and every occupant questioned. Supply convoys sat idle at checkpoints, while drivers attempted to prove their American identity. Units rushing to reinforce threatened sectors were delayed by repeated interrogations. Between December 16th and December 31st, American forces captured 23 members of Operation Greif. 16 were captured in December 1944. Each captured infiltrator faced military trial. The legal situation was clear under international law. Article 23 of the Hague Convention concerning land warfare specifically forbade improper use of enemy military insignia and uniform. The first trial began at Henry Chapelle on December 21st. Pernas Billing and Schmidt faced charges of violating the laws of war by wearing American uniforms while conducting military operations. The evidence was overwhelming. They had been captured in American uniforms with American weapons, carrying American identification but wearing German field grey underneath. The trial was swift. All three were convicted and sentenced to death by firing squad. On December 23, 1944, 2 days before Christmas, the sentences were carried out. American military police led the three Germans to the execution site. Captain J. Eisler of the 633rd Medical Clearing Station pinned white paper targets over their hearts. Schmidt's glasses were removed. The prisoners were blindfolded. Military police formed the firing squad. Billing shouted, "Long live our Führer Adolf Hitler!" At the moment of execution, the rifles fired. All three men died instantly. Their bodies were cut down, carried away, and buried. Eventually, they would be interred at the German military cemetery at Lommel, Belgium, where they rest today alongside more than 39,000 other German war dead. 13 additional Operation Greif participants were tried and executed at either Henry, Chapelle or High between December 21st and December 31st. Each execution followed military trial. Each trial found the defendants guilty of violating the Hague Convention. Each sentence was reviewed and approved by senior commanders. The executions were carried out with military precision, without malice, but without malice. In total, 17 Operation Greif participants were executed for wearing enemy uniforms. The operation's tactical accomplishments were minimal. No bridges were captured. No major demolitions succeeded. No critical communications were permanently disrupted. A few road signs were reversed. Some telephone lines were cut. Several American units received false orders, though most were quickly corrected. but the psychological impact vastly exceeded any tactical results. For weeks, American forces operated under the assumption that German infiltrators might be anywhere. The paranoia affected decision-making at every level. Eisenhower's confinement meant the Supreme Commander was isolated from direct observation of battlefield conditions during the critical opening phase of the offensive. The checkpoint delays slowed the American response to the German penetration. Units that should have reached threatened sectors in hours took days to arrive. The widespread suspicion degraded unit cohesion. American soldiers, who should have been focused on fighting Germans to their front, instead worried about possible Germans among them. For Otto Skorzeny, Operation Greif was over by December 17th, when Panzer Brigade 150 converted to conventional operations. On December 21st, the brigade attempted to capture Malmedy, but was repulsed after several assaults. Skorzeny was wounded by artillery shrapnel near Ligneuville. He recovered and continued serving until Germany's surrender. In May 1945, Skorzeny surrendered to the 30th Infantry Regiment. He spent 2 years in custody awaiting trial. At the Dachau trials in 1947, Skorzeny and 9 officers of Panzer Brigade 150 faced charges of improperly using American uniforms by entering combat disguised and treacherously firing upon American forces. Skorzeny's defense rested on a crucial distinction. His men had been ordered to remove American uniforms before engaging in actual combat. The disguises were for infiltration and deception, not for fighting. A surprise defense witness proved decisive. Yo. Thomas, a former British Special Operations executive agent, testified that Allied forces had used identical tactics. He had personally worn German uniforms behind enemy lines during missions in France. The military tribunal drew a clear distinction between using enemy uniforms during combat and using them for deception. It could not be proven that Skorzeny had ordered his men to fight while wearing American uniforms. The tribunal acquitted all defendants. The verdict was controversial. 17 of Skorzeny's men had been executed for the same actions for which he was acquitted. The checkpoint interrogations became part of American military folklore. The questions about baseball and Hollywood, state capitals and movie stars became symbols of how cultural identity served as a security tool during crisis. The improvised system, however chaotic, proved effective at exposing infiltrators whose language training could not replicate the casual cultural knowledge that Americans absorbed naturally from childhood. Being American involved more than speaking English or wearing the right uniform. It involved shared cultural experiences, common references, collective memories that could not be adequately taught to foreigners in weeks of training. This cultural cohesion, often taken for granted, proved to be a national security asset when tested by enemy infiltrators. The 17 men executed for Operation Greif are remembered today primarily through military cemeteries and historical accounts. Their graves at Lommel are maintained with the same care as those of soldiers who died in conventional combat. The cemetery makes no distinction between those executed as spies and those killed in battle. All are German war dead. Manfred Pernas was 23 years old at execution. June Enther Billing, 21, remained a convinced Nazi to his final moment. Wilhelm Schmidt, 24, faced death with quiet resignation. Each was someone's son, perhaps someone's brother. Each had made choices that led to that frozen morning in Belgium, to those posts, to those blindfolds, to those rifles. Operation Greif's legacy extended beyond its tactical failure. The operation demonstrated that special operations cannot compensate for conventional military failure. Skorzeny's infiltrators could not capture bridges if Paper's panzers never reached them. No amount of deception and confusion could substitute for the breakthrough that never occurred. Yet the operation succeeded in creating disruption far exceeding what the actual infiltrators accomplished. The mere possibility of infiltration created panic, affecting hundreds of thousands of soldiers. This gap between perception and reality became a key lesson in modern strategic thinking about psychological warfare. The Battle of the Bulge ended January 1945. Allied forces resumed their advance toward Germany. Within 4 months, the Third Reich collapsed. Hitler committed suicide in his Berlin bunker. Germany surrendered unconditionally on May 8, 1945. The 17 executed Operation Greif participants were already in their graves, their war having ended violently on Belgian soil far from home.